Parents, teachers, guardians, and mentors. We can all agree you've got big shoes to fill, and it may feel like they're always getting bigger and more daunting. Welcome to Parenting Adventures, where we aim to be a beacon of support and knowledge for those navigating the complexities of parenting. Each episode, we bring on experts to walk us through the most pressing issues facing families, with evidence-based, practical strategies. And if school struggles are part of the puzzle, check out how Tutor Teach can help. Now, let's dive into the episode.
Have you ever wondered how nature can enrich your child's learning experience and complement what they're taught in the classroom? I'm your host, Lara Courtepatte, and today we're joined by Anne Beauchamp, a passionate educator and forest and nature school practitioner. Anne has nearly 15 years of experience teaching early elementary in a multi-graded setting and now brings her expertise to the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada. She's also a proud mom raising her family near Grasslands National Park. In this episode, Anne shares her journey into forest and nature school education, what makes this approach so unique, and how it works hand in hand with traditional classroom learning. We'll explore common misconceptions about outdoor learning, simple ways parents can bring nature-based principles into their homes, and how to advocate for more outdoor opportunities in local schools and communities. If you're curious about how to foster creativity, curiosity, and a deeper connection to the natural world in your child's education, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Stay tuned to learn how nature can elevate learning for every child. And welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you here today. Can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming a forest school practitioner? What drew you to this work, and what does your role at the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada look like?
Well, thank you so much for having me on today. I actually am a teacher by day, I guess. I spent 14 years in elementary education, early elementary, and I was one of those teachers who always was dabbling in experiential and outdoor learning, always trying to make my class more engaging and more fun. And COVID really kind of shook that up for a lot of teachers because everything became very regulated and very regimented, and it felt confined, right? So with the mandates that were presented in our province, we were allowed to be unmasked outside. And so it was natural for me to say, well, we're just going to do math outside, or we're going to do language outside today. And through that process, I was able to find Child and Nature Alliance Canada, and they were offering a forest and nature school practitioner course in Saskatchewan. I was like, sure, I'll give that a try. But lo and behold, I jumped into a group of educators that I had never been a part of or acknowledged that I was a part of before. And I found that in that circle of like-mindedness was this love for outdoor learning that I had never truly fleshed out, I guess, and started embracing what their mandates were, what their practices were, and found that it melds really well with how I was already teaching. And it felt very natural for me to just continue on that path. And so through my process of becoming a forest nature school practitioner and doing the year-long coursework, I also was able to implement a forest nature school program within my school, and created an entire outdoor learning program for those kids. And yeah, it just kind of kept growing and growing, and I loved the adventures that it's taken me on. And Child and Nature Alliance Canada brought me on as a professional learning facilitator from there. So it's been great work so far.
That's amazing. You're that fun teacher that's always kind of thinking of new ways to engage their students.
I guess so, yeah.
COVID brought about some good, some bad, and some ugly. And this is truly kind of an example of turning lemons into lemonade, where you took kind of what the restrictions were and still wanted kids to be able to get their education in a safe and constructive way. And I bet you the kids just loved that because it provided them a sense of normal during a sense of abnormal. And they were still able to kind of keep their brains stimulated and learning the concepts, but in a different and innovative way. I think that's really neat.
Absolutely. It was the way that we all felt a little bit of calm in amongst all of the chaos. Absolutely.
That's a good way of putting it. So, for those who may not be familiar, can you explain what forest and nature schools are all about? How do they differ from the traditional classroom experience that most parents might be used to?
Okay, so a forest and nature school really focuses on child led inquiry based learning. And so to break it down, it's trusting that the kids are curious and that they want to engage in the world around them. So, you, as the teacher or educator, are there as the facilitator, not the quote unquote sage on the stage, feeding information to kids. You are guiding them through their own unique learning and so that it can be authentic for them.
That's so cool. And also, kids are so smart and they ask questions that well, I know my kids ask me questions that I can't answer, or I'll answer them, and my husband will be in the room, and he'll be like, "That's not the right answer." And so like they ask these complex questions that as adults we kind of just don't think about, or that we don't remember learning in our young years. And so I bet you get some really interesting topics going on.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the biggest one that was my big takeaway from uh, shifting, I guess I didn't change, we shifted from like a traditional classroom experience to a forest and nature classroom experience, is that um, kids are innately curious. And so allowing them the freedom to, explore and wonder about the world, is also scary a little bit because you as a teacher are essentially losing control, that big C word, of what is happening in your classroom, but also the deeper learning that they actually get out of the process of doing that authentic inquiry learning is so much deeper than what you would ever have done in a typical by the curriculum or by the book classroom setting.
I mean, some kids just need alternate ways of learning. And,
Mhm.
the classroom's not a one size fits all. Homeschooling's not a one size fits all. Unschooling's not a one size fits all. There's so many different ways to learn. And it's figuring out what works best for your child to have them thrive and gain confidence every step of the way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So I imagine that some parents or educators might be skeptical about outdoor nature based learning and its impact. What are some of the most common misconceptions you encounter? And how do you help people see the value of this approach?
I think the biggest misconception that people think about starting forest nature school learning or taking your classroom outside is that it has to be perfect. Perfect weather, the perfect place, the perfect plan. Um, but in the words of Brene Brown, I myself am a recovering perfectionist and a practicing good enoughist. And I think that that's kind of the philosophy for forest and nature school, is that you need to forget about perfect, whether that's Pinterest perfect or TikTok perfect or anything like that, and just try. Right. So you just need to start, you just need to go outside and begin some of that sustained outside time with your kids.
A good enoughist. I want to be a
Mhm.
good enoughist.
Exactly. Right.
We live in a world of perfectionism, especially with the surge in social media, how young people are getting on social media. So we're all comparing, well, a lot of people are comparing themselves to others, because you can really put that picture perfect life up there. And so it starts as young as any child with a device, and it goes up from there. So what I love about this is it's also appears to be a device free, technology free type learning, which I think will lend itself to a child's imagination, creativity, soft skills, things like that. So fine motor skills, which are taking a bit of a hit with the surge of technology. So I think that there's secondary benefits that aren't even maybe as obvious to this program.
Absolutely. So, like, one of the big things that I saw when I was seeing multiple kids coming in, especially after spending a year online or something like that, for our beginning school age children, is that our fine and gross motor skills were not where they were pre COVID or pre pandemic, right? And so kids can't hold a pencil and write if they can't, you know, manipulate their fingers right, or play in the mud properly, or carry a heavy load, or be able to move their arms and limbs in opposition in a way that um, is safe and makes sense for them for any kind of speed or um, challenging obstacle. And so when we're putting kids outside and giving them all of these different environments to walk through or navigate through, we see them building some of that. Well, we see a huge development in fine and gross motor development, but also their adaptability and their problem solving and their resiliency, right? And um, also, just that whole idea of I can do this, instead of can you help me? I can't do, and that real whiny voice that always seems to be a trigger for families.
I have 4 kids. I know that voice.
hmm
So for parents who don't have access to a forest or nature school program, what can they do at home to bring some of these principles into their child's everyday life? Any simple practical suggestions?
Absolutely. Okay. So, some of the core ideas of Forest Nature School is that Forest and Nature School takes place in any outdoor space. So, that is urban green space, playground, forest, creeks, prairies, mountains, shorelines, tundra, the walking path through your community. All of that is an outdoor space. As long as it is not in a building, it is an outdoor space. So, coupled with the fact that it is a sustained process of regular, repeated sessions outside. So that means, on Tuesdays, we go for a walk from here to the mailbox to get our mail and come back. That's every Tuesday for longer than 5 minutes. That is sustained outside time. And as long as you, as a parent, are just taking that time and listening to your kid and hearing what they're noticing, even if they're just stopping to see, a puddle or an anthill, or notice a different sound or a different flower in someone's garden, that is going to help them build a relationship with land and with place that wasn't available unless you took that time. And so I think that's the overall goal of an outdoor learning program is, you know, go outside from a building again and again and again. Create those memories, create those lasting impacts of land-based connection.
There's a minimum amount of time a human should spend, or a human should spend outside. I believe 15 minutes a day or something of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't quote me on that, but every day there should be some outdoor activity.
Yeah, I don't know the statistic on that one, but I do know that if you're busy, it should be an hour.
At the very minimum, getting outside, getting some vitamin D, moving yourself, moving your body outside, even during the colder temperatures, obviously safely doing so. But it's good for the brain. It's good for the mental state, the emotional state, and the physical state.
Absolutely.
What would you say to parents who want to see more outdoor learning opportunities in their local schools or communities? How can they advocate for programs like these effectively? And what are the common barriers that often get in the way?
I think the big thing, or the big learning that I have done, is that not everyone, if you are a huge advocate for outdoor learning and outdoor playtime and all of that, not everyone is going to be at the same place you are with a comfort level of being outside. And taking time to acknowledge that, if you're coming up to your kid's teacher and being like, hey, I think we should do some more outdoor learning, maybe they have a different experience outside that they are not comfortable with. Or, in the education system, sometimes we're met with different barriers that we have to meet for in terms of safety, communication. Those teachers sometimes need loose parts that are brought into their brought into their classroom. So whether that's, you donating an entire box of pine cones, or offering that to help out with something, or donations of, a bird feeder to put outside their classroom window, or something like that, that just gives an opportunity to bring that outside in and to make it accessible even inside. And when we're talking about accessibility, not all of our students or our children are as mobile children who are differently abled have different needs for access to outdoor spaces. And so having those spaces that are available to be brought in indoors, or materials of outside brought in, are sometimes easier.
That's awesome, because you're talking about how can schools get involved in, who want to parents who want to see more outdoor learning opportunities brought to their schools. What I think is interesting is you're saying bring the outdoors inside, and I think a bird feeder is a perfect example. Get all the kids to create a bird feeder using pine cones and some seeds, or bringing in some little sticks and creating a little log cabin out of it, or something of that nature. I think is really neat. And kids love that. Like, I know that my son, he was stamping leaves recently. And so I just think that bringing the outdoor in is almost easier than bringing the schooling outside in some ways, especially in different climates and whatnot. So I think that makes it much more accessible programming for sure.
Absolutely. And the best way to do it is start with what you're comfortable with, because as you become more comfortable with how you are accessing outdoor learning or loose parts or anything like risky play, you are going to get braver yourself as you experience it. So my big advice is just start.
That's good advice. Just jump in. Don't think too much about it. That's good. So lastly, parents who want to get involved and to learn more about the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada, where can they do that?
Okay, so Child and Nature Alliance of Canada has a great website. And so there's different methods that you can become engaged. So we have training as short as 1 hour webinar or workshops that you can go to or attend. Some of them are online, some of them are in person. There's Introduction to Risky Play, Anti-Racism and Belonging in Outdoor Play, a tools workshop, or even if you're really eager, how to start a forest nature school. If you are somewhere like a daycare or recreational center or schools, you can actually reach out to Child and Nature Alliance of Canada, and they can tailor programs to fit your needs if you're hoping to train a bunch of people. And if you are like the real eager beaver and want to try and do forest nature school as a program yourself, or run your own business, or you want to, elevate your own teaching repertoire, they do offer a year-long study program called Forest and Nature School Practitioners course. And it's offered in different in-person sessions, so either 2 and 3 days, or a 5-day long study, and then a year-long course completion where you are learning the tools, learning the requirements for even insurance, and then applying it to your own practice.
Very cool. Well, I love the work that you're doing. I think it's impactful. It's forward thinking. Just like with Tutor Teach, our mission is your pathway to confidence. This is something that would align with that. It's really instilling confidence and curiosity in children, and having them grow in their own learning and sense of self. And I just think that's cool. That's really cool. And it's different, and it will support some kids who really need to learn that way. And it might work really well for some and really not well for others. And it might make sense for some families and make zero sense for others, but at least the option is there. And I think that's what's important, is that there's options.
Absolutely. And I hope that for anyone listening, they take a minute and look up some forest and nature schools that are in your area. And I know that many of those forest and nature school practitioners are incredible people that will help see the world in a different way.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Anne, for joining us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think a lot of parents are going to take away some new tidbits on how their children are learning and embracing their own confidence. So thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Parenting Adventures. Thanks for listening. We hope it gives you that extra bit of confidence that you need to conquer the road ahead. And if you're looking for academic support to ensure your kids thrive in school, visit tutorteach.ca to learn how we're here for families just like yours. We'll see you in the next episode.